just north of the Dayton Mall, across the street from Lowe's. Call 436-6161.
Thank you for calling the Browns Emotional Support Line. Press 1 if you're blaming the refs. Press 2 if you're blaming the quarterback. Press 3 if you're blaming the head coach. Don't worry, we've got you. 1410 Wing AM, the only station where it's safe to scream into your radio.
All right, everybody, we welcome you in live here on a Monday. I am back from Cali. I'm excited. Well, I was excited to be back, to be honest with you. But you leave California, you come back, there's all this snow on the ground. If you just heard that last commercial, it was the Christmas bells and all that stuff. I'm not ready for all that. I'm not ready to go broke. Welcome in. Happy Monday, the Justin Kinner Show. Excited to be back with you here in studio today. A lot to get into. The Bengals run a bye week, but there's still plenty of Bengals news to dive into. Joe Burrow could be back a lot, sooner rather than later. What does that necessarily mean for the Bengals? We'll open up with that coming up here in a moment. Kevin Stefanski, I'm out. I'm done. I'm over it. I'm ready for a complete overhaul. It is what it is. I was a Stefanski defender, 2-time coach of the year. Took, multiple Browns teams to the playoffs with multiple different quarterbacks. He was winning a lot early, not winning a lot right now. In fact, not winning at all right now. In fact, just lost to the worst team in football, or maybe they are the worst team in football. I don't get it. I don't get it. College basketball, Wright State, Dayton Flyers, Ohio State, plenty to get into when it comes to local college hoops. And we have we have college basketball a lot coming your way this week. In fact, tomorrow, Toledo will be at the Nutter Center to take on Wright State. Wright State just got back from their road trip across the country at Cal. The whole time we're there, I'm just like refreshing, my feed to make sure that our flight's not canceled because, that would have been quite a long bus ride, if you will, to get back. But either way, they lost by 10. They had a chance to tie it late with just a few minutes to go. But to be on the road against an ACC opponent, to have a chance to win that game the way they did, it's a much different-looking team than a year ago, and we'll talk more about that. We got tickets for you if you want to go watch Wright State and Toledo tomorrow night at the Nutter Center. They have a freshman, all right, that I'm a humongous fan of. And I'm telling you, if I wouldn't have told you he's a freshman, when you go to the game, you wouldn't even realize the kid's a freshman. We'll talk about him more coming up here in just a little bit. Again, I'm Justin Kinner. It's the Justin Kinner Show, Dayton's ESPN Radio, 1410 Wing AM. Lots of ways to get involved in the show. I'm back in the studio today. So 937-518-1410. That's the number to call and jump in on the conversation. Or, of course, you could text that number. We're live on the Justin Kinner Show Facebook page. Ron Howard, I see you. Ron Howard already throwing in a Go Browns. But that reminds me, just need to get this thing, we just need to get rid of that. I'm done. I don't want to see that thing, for a while. I'm pretty ticked off at my Cleveland Browns, so I'm throwing that helmet away. For those watching on the stream, I don't need to be looking over my shoulder with that Browns helmet just staring a hole through me. I'm over it. Now, let's just put it that way. But okay, let's talk about this. Let's talk about your Cincinnati Bengals. Okay. Cincinnati didn't play over the week, but there's still a lot of things that did impact the Cincinnati Bengals, including their shot to win the division. Okay, including their shot to win the division. And bottom line is I still, that's the only way the Bengals are going to make the playoffs is to win this division. But the bottom line is that everything that needed to happen for the Bengals to have a legit shot to win this division, they let slip through their fingers. Not once, but twice. You get Joe Flacco back, you lose a close game to the Packers, but you finally look like a football team. You look like a team that had a pulse. And then you go on and you beat the Steelers on Thursday Night Football, and then it looked like you had more than a pulse. It looked like you had more than just a fighter's chance of competing for this division. I thought this team was good enough to win it, considering, keeping in mind the deficiencies, but also understanding how weak this division is. Okay. But then the Jets happened, and then, of course, what happened, the debacle against the Chicago Bears. And then you add in the fact that now the Baltimore Ravens they're winning because they got Lamar back, and they're just obviously a different team when they get Lamar Jackson back. That kind of throws a wrench in any plans that the Bengals had of potentially competing for this division. The Ravens are winning this. Okay, I see Goodberry. I see some of the other Bengals media guys. Their whole, they have to make you believe. Okay, they have to get you to believe that the Bengals have a shot at the playoffs so that you'll continue to be interested in their content. And I'm not here to poo-poo on their content. They do a great. Goodberry does a good job. All that fun stuff. That's not what I'm here to debate. But what I am here to tell you is Their job is to continue to make you believe that there's a shot that the Bengals have in making the playoffs. I'm here to tell you they don't. I'm here to tell you that the Bengals don't have a shot. I don't care that they're mathematically in it. I used to think that they were realistically somewhat in it. They're no longer realistically in this thing. They're no longer realistically in this thing. I mean, the Cleveland Browns are at the dead bottom of that division, 2-7. I'm out on the Browns as well. The Bengals are 3-6. Baltimore 4-5. This is where losing games like the Bengals did against the Jets and the Bears will come back to haunt them. Okay? It's, you got your doors blown off against the Vikings, against the Lions, against the Packers. Well, you got beat by the Packers, but they still moved the ball all up and down, against your defense. But to lose the way they did in back-to-back weeks heading into the bye week, like they don't have a shot. They do not have a single shot to winning this division. They just don't. And it's not because of the offense. It's not because of Joe Flacco. It's nothing. I don't even care that Joe Burrow is potentially coming back. I don't see a purpose for Joe Burrow to come back outside of risking him getting hurt because he's fragile. And then you could potentially be without him to start next season. And then we're going to start the same old song and dance all over again. The Cincinnati Bengals are not winning this division. The Baltimore Ravens, since getting Lamar back, they've won back-to-back games. Now they've won 3 straight. With Huntley, they beat the Bears 30-16. Okay, since getting Lamar back, they just blew out the Dolphins at Miami, the team that just blew out Buffalo yesterday. And then, of course, they win on the road at Minnesota, 27-19. And then Lamar and company have to remain on the road as they're going to be at Cleveland coming up this weekend. And that's a 4:25 kickoff on CBS and all that fun stuff, yada, yada. But you look at who the Ravens have coming up. A bad Browns team, a bad Jets team, your bad Bengals team. The Steelers aren't anything to be afraid of. The Bengals aren't anything to be afraid of again, okay? Then they play the Patriots, Packers, Steelers. The Patriots, Packers are their biggest threat. But the Ravens have the Browns, 2 with the Bengals, 2 with the Steelers. They also have the Jets in there. I mean, what are we doing? The Ravens are going to win this division because let's just say, I mean, they're sitting at 4 wins right now. The Browns will be 5 wins. The Jets will be 6 wins. They'll split with the Bengals if you're lucky. That's 7 wins. They're going to beat the Steelers. That's 8 wins, right? Like, and then there's, they'll split between the Packers and Patriots, and that's 9. And they probably beat the Patriots, the Steelers again to close it out because the Steelers won't be playing for anything. So Baltimore's winning this. The Bengals, you cannot trust at all to beat to go out there and get a win when they need it the absolute most. This is the Baltimore Ravens division. So I get it. Goodberry, all the other Bengals media out there, it's their job to make you believe that the Bengals have a fighter's chance. They do not. Because it's one thing if you want to talk about what the Bengals have to do to beat other teams, but all we ever seem to talk about is how this team beats themselves. That defense beats the Bengals every time. We're talking, of course, about Chase Brown verbally attacking that defense. We're talking about Jamar Chase trying not to go off on his defense in the post game. We're talking about a Bengals team that's about to implode in the middle. There's just, I have no faith that this team is going to be good enough when it's all said and done to get the job done to make the playoffs. So there's that. I mean, and again, by the way, this is coming from someone who I need the Bengals to be good. I need them to be in the hunt. I need them to be in the playoff position. For content. It is what it is. It's just kind of where we're at as far as this goes. But other Bengals news today that kind of caught everybody's attention, and we kind of knew when Joe Burrow went out back in week 2, and that week it was announced that he would be out for 3 months, and that this injury would put him in position to return in mid-December. Well, today, Cincinnati Bengals quarterback Joe Burrow, he was officially cleared for practice. Could he return for Cincinnati's Thanksgiving showdown with the Baltimore Ravens on Thursday Night Football? That's kind of the date that people are circling, that everyone's really hopeful for. I mean, that would be very, very unique if they could pull that off. I mean, that would be, in Baltimore, of course. In Baltimore, that would be on November 27th, and that would be a few weeks ahead of schedule. All I got to say is this. If Joe Burrow does come back and he's able to play at Thanksgiving, yes, I would have been wrong because I said there's no way in hell he plays for the rest of the season. The main reason I said that is because I just don't think rushing him back to play for a team that might mathematically be in it, but realistically isn't in it. I just don't see the purpose in that. When you have a fragile quarterback, I don't see the risk. I don't see the purpose in risking it. Let's just say that the Bengals do somehow find a way to fight to narrowly get into the playoffs. You're talking about a team that's going to be knocked out instantly, and you're just risking him getting injured because he's going to be playing still banged up. I just don't see the reward being worth the risk when it's all said and done. This team is bad. They can't run the football. They can't protect the quarterback, and the defense is even way worse than we thought coming into the season. I just don't see the risk. NFL insider Jay Glazer shared some insight after the Bengals announced Burrow was cleared for practice. Jay Glazer goes on in his tweet to say, last week Joe Burrow told him that he's returning way sooner than was expected and gave Jay Glazer the timeline of Thanksgiving. Now we'll start practicing on a limited basis. Absolutely unreal attack of rehab and response. At first, medical people didn't believe he'd be back before the playoffs. Huge jump for him, nonetheless. The Bengals now can activate Joe Burrow to the 53-man roster anytime between now and December 1st. He will not play on Sunday against the Steelers, so there's a 0% chance that happens. Okay, Cincinnati hosts New England the following week on November 23rd. If the Bengals could win one of those games or possibly both, all right, it wouldn't be shocking, according to James Rapine and, CincinnatiBengals.com here to, CincinnatiBengalsSI.com here talking about this particular situation, that if they could win one of the next two or, heaven forbid they could win both, that it would probably lead to us seeing Burrow come back on that Thanksgiving game against the Baltimore Ravens. The AFC North wide open, as we know. But if the Bengals win a few games, and they'll be in the thick of the division race going forward and heading into that primetime matchup against Baltimore. And we know Baltimore is going to be in the mix of it as well. Burrow hasn't played since he suffered that grade 3 toe sprain, back in week 2. He underwent surgery just a few days after that, back in September. We'll see. Zach Taylor had this to say about Joe Burrow. I think he's ready for this part of the recovery to come back in a limited basis and progress on the field with the players. So I think he's at a good point internally. My question is this, Bengals fans. This is not a big picture question. I'm not trying to stir the pot. But as far as the right now, every time Joe Burrow starts a season, he starts out slow because it takes him a minute to get going. Wouldn't it be really frustrating if the Cincinnati Bengals, who cannot afford to take any possessions off offensively, wouldn't it really sting if the defense finally has just an average game one of these weeks, and it happens to be the week that they bring Joe Burrow back, and it's that 1 or 2 games that he needs to get going that you guys just don't have time for? I actually can't believe I'm saying this, but I think it would be, even though this is Joe Burrow's team, no doubt about it. But if Joe Burrow gave a damn about this team, and I think that he does, but I also think that he sees Joe Flacco, 40 years old, putting up monster numbers that he believes should be his numbers. I think he's getting a little territorial. I think he's getting a little jealous. I think that he is getting a little concerned about the talking points surrounding this of Joe Burrow. We know he's special, but how special is he? Because if a 40-year-old quarterback can come in and sling it all up and down this field with the same deficiencies that Joe Burrow plays with, how special is Joe Burrow? Really? When Josh Allen is gone from the Bills, and it doesn't happen often, they're not even close to being the same team. Lamar Jackson, when he leaves Baltimore, they don't win football games. They were a 1-win team until a couple weeks ago. But without Joe Burrow, they may not be winning games right now, but they're not winning games because Joe Burrow's been out. They've been losing games the same way they lost games with Joe Burrow last year, and it's because this defense is absolutely horrendously bad. I think it's a mistake to bring Joe Burrow back quickly. If you get to mid-December and he's there, that's fine. I respect that decision at that point. But I think rushing him back right now seems kind of idiotic. And for an organization that I don't think makes the right decisions enough for you to trust them in any capacity, I don't think I would trust Zach Taylor, Duke Tobin, or anybody, because I don't think anybody has Joe Burrow's best interest at heart. I think they have their best interest at heart. And they're going to put Joe Burrow's future on the back burner because they feel like they need Joe Burrow back to win football games. What I'm here to tell you is Joe Burrow going to throw for 400? Is he capable of it? No doubt. But we know what rhythm he's in right now. We know what Joe Flacco's doing right now. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And the offense isn't broke right now. And it's the only thing that's going well for the Cincinnati Bengals. Why risk having that offensive flow come to a complete halt? Because we got to allow Joe Burrow to kind of get back into it a little bit. No, you don't. You don't have to let Joe Burrow get back into anything. Joe Flacco has done a tremendous job and deserves to see this out until the point to where Joe Burrow's 100%, not rushed back to where he can play on a limp. 937-518-1410. This isn't a long-term, big-picture question. Of course you want Joe Burrow back, but do you want Joe Burrow back now? Do you want Joe Burrow back on Thanksgiving night? That's the question I have for you. 937-518-1410. You're not going to get your Bengals fan card taken away if you say no. I think there's a lot of logic, to be used here, that should be used here when it comes to, man, we don't need to rush Joe Burrow back. It's not like, oh, man, we need to get Joe Burrow back by this time if we want a shot. You have a shot because of Joe Flacco. The reason that you're still even remotely kind of in this thing is because of Joe Flacco. I just don't think it's smart to rush Joe Burrow back, because even if he comes back, he wasn't good against the Browns. He was not even very good against the Jaguars in week 2. And he's going to have to restart that getting acclimated period again, coming off this injury and not really being, playing football for a few months. 937-518-1410. Of course, you want Joe Burrow to be your quarterback, but do you want him back right now? 937-518-1410. It's the Justin Kinner Show presented by Frickers. We will be right back.
The holidays are here, full of joy, family, friends, and yes, a little a lead between cooking, shopping, and all those extra.
Today's forecast, 100% chance of overreactions, heated debates, and a slight drizzle of hope for Bengals fans. Sorry, guy with Burrow jersey. You're listening to the Justin Kinner Show, 1410 ESPN Radio.
All right, and we are back. I'm Justin Kinner with you here, Dayton's ESPN Radio, 1410 Wing AM 937-518-1410. That's the number to call and jump in on the conversation. So, look, the Ravens get Lamar Jackson back. They've won 3 straight. All of a sudden, they're sitting with 4 wins. They're right there knocking on the doorstep of taking over complete control of the AFC North. 4-5 is the record for Baltimore. And, for them coming up, they got Cleveland coming up this week, and that's going to give them their 5th win of the season. They're going to be at 500. As far as the Steelers are concerned, the Steelers are doing exactly what I anticipated them to do. A few weeks ago, after they lost to the Cincinnati Bengals, I said if you looked at the run that the Steelers were on, they had to go against the Green Bay Packers, the Indianapolis Colts, and the Chargers. And I said there's a very good chance that they lose all 3 of those. And, of course, they end up beating the Colts. Now, they had the Colts at home, so that helps. But, they end up losing to the Chargers last night in a very ugly game, by the way, 25-10 the final there. And now the AFC North is not so – it's not really looking like the Steelers division anymore. They're 5-4. They're sitting atop the division, but this division is Baltimore. I see Goodberry and I see other Cincinnati Bengals reporters out there. They're trying to do the false hope routine of, if a couple things go right here and this here, this isn't like we don't know what this Bengals team is. We know what this Bengals team is. It's not like sometimes if you lose your star player, you're kind of learning what your team is without your star player. You lost Joe Burrow back in week 2, and since you got Joe Flacco, you look like the same exact team with Joe Burrow than without. As without. Without Joe Burrow, you look the same as with them. And that's not a shot at Joe Burrow. That's just the reality of it. That's how fortunate they were to get Joe Flacco. But that's the thing. They lost this. The way they're losing games now is how they lost games last year. So this idea that, so if for those of you that don't know, it came out to just about an hour ago that Joe Burrow, it's looking like they may get him back sooner rather than later. Joe Burrow was officially cleared for practice earlier today. He could potentially return for Cincinnati's Thanksgiving showdown with the Ravens in just a few weeks. Jay Glazer, NFL insider, Joe Burrow apparently told him that, the expected timeline that he's aiming for is Thanksgiving-ish. He's going to start practicing on a limited time basis. And if he, is able to be cleared to play, that's the other thing too. Just because you're cleared to play doesn't mean you're 100%. It just means that you're cleared to resume practice. You got to get out there, test how it feels. None of this means anything. And the bottom line is we saw Joe Burrow with a completely healthy camp. He made it through the entire preseason. He played in the preseason. He was healthy throughout the preseason. He was healthy all off season. He had all his wide receivers. He had everything that you needed to get off to a hot start. Now, you're fortunate that you started out 2-0. It was the ugliest 2-0 start, but I've seen this team look better 2 games in while also being 0-2. So you got to take the 0-2 start, but let's not act like the offense was clicking with Joe Burrow in the first 2 weeks. It wasn't. And not that it wouldn't have been figured out. That's just how the Bengals roll with Joe Burrow. They always get out to that slow start. But is that just a weird, wacky thing that happens in weeks 1 and 2 in September? Or is this how Joe Burrow's offenses are when he comes back after a major time away from the game? And I don't mean practice and I don't mean preseason games. I mean actual, real game speed type of environment. So Joe Burrow has not done anything as far as football is concerned since that week 2 matchup against the Jaguars. He had surgery a few days later. So from mid-September to basically now in mid-November, September and October, so 2 months without touching a football. And now he's going to get, 21-day little period of light practice sessions. And now you're supposed to believe that when he hits the field potentially on Thanksgiving night, that he's just going to go out there and sling it all over the field, because that's just not how Joe Burrow operates when he misses a lot of time. It takes him a few weeks of playing the game at full speed before the game slows down for him. That's not a hot take. That's not me spinning, stirring the pot. That's not me doing anything here. That's just simply the facts. There is year 6, year 7 in the league, and every year it's the same exact story. Why should I believe that all of a sudden Joe Burrow steps on the field and he's just going to be Joe Burrow. And that's the other thing. Even if he is Joe Burrow on Thanksgiving night against Baltimore, who cares? Joe Flacco has been Joe Burr in Joe Burr's absence. Joe Flacco has been the leader of this team. Joe Flacco has been that cool, calming presence that this team has needed throughout this stretch. Joe Flacco has had put up some significantly stupid numbers on pace to where Joe Flacco's pace right now, if you started it from week 1 and he plays a full 17-game season, he would throw for over 5,000 yards and 45 touchdowns, the same exact pace that Joe Burrow was on last year. That's the pace that Joe Flacco is on at 40-plus years old with a bad offensive line with no run game and a defense that's even worse than Joe Burrow's from last year. And it's not like Joe Flacco is winning this team football games, but he's damn sure put this team in position to win the last 2 weeks against the Jets and the Bears, and the defense has failed them both times. Just like Joe Burrow put him in position to win a ton of games last year. You know, both games against Baltimore, put him in position to win a game against the Kansas City Chiefs. Should have beat the Chargers late in the season. There are 4 games last year. That was a 9-win team last year that missed the playoffs. 4 games, Joe Burrow played good enough for them to win those football games, and the defense and special teams lost them those games. So getting Joe Burrow back means absolutely nothing, because it's not as if you're saying, man, if we could just hold on until Joe Burrow gets back. Joe Flacco has not just held on. He has pulled you. You've been holding on to Joe Flacco, right? Like that. You haven't been holding on until Joe Burrow gets back. You've been holding on to Joe Flacco the way you do to Joe Burrow. Joe Flacco has been phenomenal. And that's the other crazy thing too. Like, I would have really loved to see if Joe Flacco, if the Bengals like started winning a ton of football games and Joe Flacco putting up the numbers that he is, it would be crazy. But at 40-plus years old, we would have to seriously have put him in the MVP discussion had the Bengals been winning more football games the last couple of weeks. Guys, do you realize that? If the Bengals get 1 stop, 2 stops, 1 stop a week, the last 2 weeks in the final couple of possessions, Joe Flacco's probably being discussed as an MVP candidate, as crazy and wild as that sounds. That's how good Joe Flacco has played, and that's how much the Bengals defense and this roster has let him down, just like they've let Joe Burrow down. So what I'm saying is getting Joe Burrow back and throwing him out there makes absolutely 0 sense at the end of the day. I don't think it makes them better. It just doesn't. Joe Flacco has been the perfect leader in Joe Burrow's absence. And it doesn't mean you don't need Joe Burrow back long-term. But as far as this immediate season, it's the only part of the ball that is just going smoothly. Why mess with it? Can you imagine if Joe Burrow comes back and the defense, like, let me go take a look at this as far as what it would look like. Let's say, okay, he gets back against Baltimore. All right. Against the Baltimore Ravens, the Buffalo Bills, the Baltimore Ravens. Okay. That 3 games, and by the way, the New England Patriots coming up after this matchup with the Steelers this weekend. This is a very weird stretch of games where you have to be as perfect as you can on your strong side of the ball, which means you can't afford a couple of series for Joe Burrow to get going. With that defense having to face Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen 3 of the next 4 weeks, and forget this, let me say this again, because Drake May, I talked about Joe Flacco, could have possibly been in the MVP discussion had the defense have held on the last 2 weeks. The MVP leader right now technically is Drake May. And if you look at the next 4 quarterbacks that the Bengals defense is facing, Drake May, Lamar Jackson twice, and Josh Allen. Lamar Jackson's won multiple MVPs. Josh Allen just won an MVP last year, and Drake May is trending and winning his first MVP this season against that defense. That defense that made Caleb Williams, who has been average on a good day, and Justin Fields, who, by the way, threw for, had -5 yards at halftime yesterday, made those 2 quarterbacks the last couple of weeks look like MVP quarterbacks. And now you're going to face actual MVP quarterbacks. You don't have time for Joe Burrow to go out there and, oh man, I just need a few series to get it going. Your defense, your team cannot afford 3 or 4 possessions of getting it going. You have to come away with a field goal or a touchdown on every possession to have a chance to win these football games, which means if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I don't think the Bengals can afford to allow Joe Burrow time to get it going against 2 games with Lamar Jackson, a game against Drake May, and a game against Josh Allen. Now, you're not going to see Joe Burrow versus Drake May. It doesn't matter because that's in 2 weeks. He won't be back by then. It seems like the earliest you could potentially see Joe Burrow back. The game that he's circling is that primetime Thursday night game at Baltimore. It just doesn't make any sense to me. You want, and by the way, if Joe Burrow wants to come back in that, mid-December, December 21st, how about you play three? How about you bring him back against three teams that you could realistically beat, and that's the Dolphins, the Cardinals, and the Browns. I'm Justin Kinner. It's the Justin Kinner Show, 1410 ESPN Radio. Tyler, and by the way, we're live on the Justin Kinner Show Facebook page. Tyler Fife on Facebook says, we should not put him out there, talking about Joe Burrow. We shouldn't put him out there. We have no shot of making the playoffs, and this defense is worse than last year. There is no reason to have him playing this year. Now, the only pushback I'll give you, if he's 100%, I get why you want to get him out there. I don't think Joe Burrow is going to be 100% by the Thanksgiving night against Baltimore. It just seems like that's the game he's circling to try to fight to get back by. I don't think when you see Joe Burrow out there on the field for the first time since week 2, I don't think that's Joe Burrow coming back at 100%. That's just him coming back at a position of which he's capable of playing for the first time in 3 months. And that's not the same thing as being 100%. And if he's not 100%, I'm sorry, but there's no point in putting him out there, especially with how well Joe Flacco has been playing. It doesn't make any sense. Chad Kinzer says the only way Burrow should be playing is if Flacco falls off. And that's the thing. Flacco's coming off maybe the best game of his entire career. He's a Super Bowl MVP. He's a Super Bowl champion, a Super Bowl MVP. All right. He's done some miraculous things in his older age, including putting the Bengals in the spot they're in now. And he is coming off the best game, arguably, of his career. And he's been putting up monster numbers every single week. And I agree with Chad. Unless Flacco's fallen off and just looks 40 all of a sudden, there is no need to make a quarterback change when this offense is flowing as well as it is. Ann Anderson, Ann, I hope you're doing well. Ann says, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. The offense is not the problem. Until the Bengals get some defense, they are going nowhere. Why risk further injury to their franchise quarterback? Welcome back to Ohio, Justin. Well, yes, it's good to be back. At least I thought it was until I saw the snow. But yeah, like, why risk further injury to Joe Burrow when you could potentially have Joe Burrow get hurt again because he's not 100% coming back, playing behind that offensive line? And now you've impacted his ability to be ready for next season. And then we're right back to the same narrative that has existed every single season except this past one. And it still led to an injury. They have to almost put him in bubble wrap, protect Joe Burrow from himself. I think it would be absolutely ridiculous to send him out there at the end of the day. 937-518-1410. Bengals fans, if Joe Burrow if they say he's good to come back, do you want to see him back? It's not that you don't want him as your quarterback. This is still Joe Burrow's franchise, but based on the circumstances, based on what we know, we know Joe Burrow takes a week or two before he starts flowing offensively. Based on what we know this defense is going to give up a score on 90% to 95% of the opposing team's drives, right? Which means you have to score a field goal or a touchdown almost every possession, which means you don't have time for Joe Burrow over the next couple of weeks to figure it out. You're playing Lamar Jackson twice. You're playing Drake May, and you're playing Aaron Rodgers this coming up week. You're playing Drake May the following week, Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen, and then Lamar Jackson again. You don't have time in those stretch of games for Joe Burrow to go in there and figure it out. You need Joe Flacco to be out there, who has been absolutely dominant. He goes by Grandpa Mike, and he's a Ravens fan. He's on live. Grandpa Mike, welcome, sir.
Justin, how you doing?
Another day in paradise. How are you?
I've agreed with so many of the things you've been saying today. It's scary.
Is it?
Yeah. One of the things I know everybody talks about quarterbacks being out. I agree. Flacco has been incredible. And I know I've seen you in the past and talked to you, and I've never been a huge Flacco fan, even though he won the Super Bowl with the Ravens. But he was basically, after that, he was basically a 500 quarterback. Still put up good stats, but he didn't have great receivers. Just like, Lamar, when he started, didn't have great receivers. Now he's got some decent receivers. But Burrow is a phenom. He really is. The guy's as talented as anybody. But I'd keep him back. If Flacco keeps playing like he is, which has been phenomenal, and hats off to him, because he did this in Cleveland, remember? Yep. He had that stretch in games in Cleveland where he was just phenomenal. And I think it's great. But I think Cincinnati's missing the boat. If Burrow wants to come back to the game in Baltimore, I think that's a mistake. Let Flacco start that game. He'll be so psyched and ready to go. it'd be crazy.
Yeah, and it's one thing, and Mike, it's one thing too, if the defense was solid and they just weren't clicking offensively and Joe Burrow is ready to come back, yes, by all means. What's it going to hurt? You know what I mean? Like, let's try to give it. But that's not, they're not losing games because of that. In fact, they're very good. They're a top 5 offense in the NFL right now without Joe Burrow. I just don't think him coming back, forcing him back, especially a month ahead of schedule. That also doesn't make sense, because if you bring him back at the estimated time frame of which they said, 2 months ago, he would be coming back to face the Cardinals, the Dolphins, and the Browns. Those are 3 teams that you could potentially have a few bad series, and it's not going to hurt you. It's going to hurt you in those games against Lamar Jackson twice, Aaron Rodgers, Drake May, Josh Allen. That's the next month and a half stretch of football. They just can't afford to take possessions off just to allow him to get going, and there's really no need to at the end of the day.
Well, yeah, and the other thing is, I think the Bengals are missing here. Okay, he comes back Thanksgiving night against Baltimore in Baltimore. That's a short week for their whole team. Yeah, it's a short week for Baltimore, but they're at home. It's not the same.
Nope.
But you have to travel, a short week, and he's coming back. That's his first game back. I don't think that's wise, especially if the Ravens stay healthy with their defense. They have 6. Actually, they're healthier now than they were at the beginning of the season. They're still missing some key players. And I did see that Humphrey and Bateman are questionable for Sunday because they got banged up a little bit, but they'll be playing.
Well, I got some news for you, Mike. I think they'll be fine. I think, in fact, they don't even need a safety.
I'm confident. I'm confident.
I'm confident in your team as well. With Dylan Gabriel playing quarterback, trust me. In fact, I don't even think you guys need to roll a safety out there. I would give a lot of guys off. I think you just need your defensive line and a linebacker or 2, and I honestly think you guys will be just fine. There's no need to even bring practice squad guys up to go face Dylan Gabriel. What in the hell is that? I mean, my goodness, I'm a Browns fan, and I'm embarrassed.
So,
it's brutal.
Well, go ahead. If Sanders can play, go ahead and give him a shot. What the hell?
I agree. At this point,
you're not going anywhere.
Even and this is where Kevin Stefanski's full of crap, because if he does throw out Shedeur Sanders and Shedor's just as bad or worse, then Kevin Stefanski saves face. And then Kevin Stefanski could say, see, this is why I wasn't wanting to go to him, because I knew that he was as bad as Dylan Gabriel. But that's not the case. I have a hard time believing that Shedeur is as bad as Dylan Gabriel. And it doesn't mean that Shedeur is great, but he has to be better than this. Deshaun Watson was so bad last year, it was painful to watch. That would be a major upgrade over what we've seen from Dylan Gabriel.
When's he eligible to come back?
They've been very hush-hush about that, because I think we're approaching the window of time like Burrow's, where they could actually put him on that little window of time to where they can start getting him back out there where he's allowed to practice and all that. I think that window is approaching now. I thought it was after the bye week.
That's what I thought it was like beginning of December, end of November or something like that.
Yeah. I mean, that's a whole other can of worms.
Well, I don't see them play. He's not playing.
I mean, he might. They still have to pay him all in the next 2 years. And
I know.
I mean, yeah. But
now I've gotten Cincinnati in there because I don't, their defense is terrible. My Ravens defense is coming back. I've mentioned Cleveland. I got to get Pittsburgh in there. They're coming back to the pack quick.
They're what?
They're coming back to the pack quick.
Oh, yeah. Like I wasn't they do this every year. I always laugh because I do this topic every year where everyone would pick Mike Tomlin over Zach Taylor in a heartbeat. But Zach Taylor over the last 5 years has had a killer record in the last 2 months of the season, but has been bad in the first 2. Mike Tomlin is really, really good in the first 2, but bad in the last 2 months. It's like Mike Tomlin teams can't finish out a season, but they start out hot. Zach Taylor teams can't start out hot, but they always finish the season hot. It's like, which coach would you rather have? Give me the coach that puts my team in the best position to be playing their best football at the time it matters most, which is the back half of the season. But, man, both coaches are just mediocre right now with what they're getting out of their team. So who knows?
That makes me feel even better because we had a bad start this year.
Yeah, but it wasn't because oh, man, we're just trying to get it going. You guys are just trying to get healthy.
Oh, no.
But
the first 3 games they scored 37 or more points.
Oh, yeah.
But we're back. The last 3 games they've given up, I think it's a total of like 30 total, something like that.
Yeah. But
which I hate. I know you got to go. You got other people calling. I want to take up your time.
You the man, sir.
Where are you going to be live next?
We will not be live this Sunday because we have Wright State basketball, but the following Sunday we will be in Miamisburg.
Oh, okay.
So,
Well, I'll talk to you hopefully before then.
sounds good, sir. Good hearing from you.
Okay. Have a good night. Bye.
937-518-1410. That's the number to call and jump in on the conversation. But yeah, the Bengals, I mean, again, social media blew up today. Oh my God, Joe Burrow's coming back. Respectfully, I don't know what that means. Oh my gosh, Joe Burrow's coming back. We have a shot. No, I don't think Joe Burrow coming back gives you any more of a shot today than what you had yesterday. Unless Joe Burrow can play safety, cornerback, linebacker. Can he get to the quarterback like Trey Hendrickson? But he's actually very similar to Trey Hendrickson. Both never seem to be available. Always hurt right now. The Justin Kinner Show presented by Frickers. Frickers, your home for fun food, sports, and spirits.
Your family might not understand why you're still mad about a 2019 play call, but we do. 1410 ESPN Radio, where you can argue about sports without worrying about getting uninvited to Thanksgiving.
When people think sleep apnea, they think CPAP. Now at Advent, we do all we can to help sleep apnea sufferers avoid the CPAP machine. And most sleep apnea sufferers who come to Advent are going to be able to avoid a CPAP altogether. Our unique Advent approach using simple in-office solutions can get your nose working and throat open all under one roof. You see, the root of every snoring and obstructive sleep apnea problem lies within the throat, nose, or both. At Advent, we know
Doctors recommend regular exercise to manage stress. We recommend that you just watch the Bengals defense. Same result. Elevated heart rate, yelling, "I can't do this," and the occasional tears. The Justin Kinner Show, your official cardiac clinic for the Bengals.
The Toledo Rockets will be at the Nutter Center tomorrow night to take on Wright State. We'll have it all for you right here on Dayton's radio home for Wright State basketball, 1410 ESPN Radio and 1015 The Fridge. 6:45 pregame coverage begins, 7 o'clock the tip-off, and we'll have it all for you right here. Jim Brown and Chris Collins will be on the call for that one coming up tomorrow night. Wright State just got back from California. I was able to fill in for Jim Brown on the road last week, so got to do the show remotely from Cali last week, come back to all the beautiful weather we're having right now here this fall, but nonetheless. But right now, for tomorrow night's game at 7 o'clock against Toledo, the first 3,000 fans in attendance will get a Wright State T-shirt again. So if you want to go to the game, you can also win tickets, and I'll tell you how you can get tickets to tomorrow night's game. Again, Wright State Toledo it's going to be a very good game. Wright State, they last year had very solid players on that roster, but that's not the roster that they have had in recent seasons. Obviously, Scott Nagy, who was there for quite a while, leaves to take the Southern Illinois job. Clint Sargent and his staff take over, and they had to kind of fill the gaps quickly. But, Brandon Knoll leaves. He goes to Ohio State. They lose in Alex Hubricks, who's a heck of a three-point shooter. And the one thing that they had to do was they had to get more athletic at guard. They had to get more athletic on the perimeter, and they've done that. And it starts with a kid named Michael Cooper, who's a freshman. He had 17 points at Cal. In fact, Wright State started out a little sluggish, at Cal in the, first couple of minutes, and he scored 7 of their first 10. He finished with 17 nonetheless. But look, he won Horizon League Freshman of the Week with a couple of double-digit scoring performances. Cooper, if I wouldn't have told you he's a freshman and you go watch him, you never would have guessed that this kid's a freshman. He's fun as heck to watch. They have a lot of really exciting guards, and their bigs are like linebackers. So you're going to want a chance to go check them out at the Nutter Center. The first chance is tomorrow. They're going to have Toledo at the Nutter Center. I'll tell you how you can win tickets coming up here in a bit. All right. We welcome you back again. I'm Justin Kinner. It's the Justin Kinner Show presented by Frickers. Frickers, your home for fun food, sports, and spirits. The Dayton Weight Loss Secret Program has successfully helped thousands of people lose 20 to 30 pounds in a month or two. In the first month or two, you can schedule your free consultation in person or virtually by calling 937-999-1480 or online at DaytonWeightLossSecret.com. I started the Dayton Weight Loss Secret Program back on July 1st. I was one of those, thousands of people that lost between 20 and 30 pounds in the first 2 months of the program. I got to my goal weight within just a hair over 2 months. I've been able to keep that weight off. And that's the best part about this is it's not just a weight loss program that helps you dump the weight and then it comes back. It puts you in a position to keep that weight off by resetting your metabolism. And again, it's not endless workouts. You don't have to inject yourself with anything. It's not those, prepackaged meals that look better on the box than once you warm them up. Dayton Weight Loss Secret, give them a call. They're local, Dr. Justin and his staff. All right, you'll have a chance to meet with them weekly. The accountability side, to me, I think is where the most value is. You can talk about the value of this program. I think the value of having to answer to someone every single week as they do a check-in with you. I think that pushes you along the way. When man, I got my check-in a couple days from now. Man, I really want to kind of cheat on my diet today, but man, they're going to know, so I can't. So yeah, it's just that accountability thing. If you're like me, that goes a long way. So again, for your free consultation, give them a call today, 937-999-1480, or you could schedule it online at DaytonWeightLossSecret.com. All right. So my goodness. I mean, it's just that I don't know why we don't talk more Ohio State football on this show. At least it's about a team that wins freaking football games, but it's the Browns and the Bengals, and that's what you guys seem to like the most. And of course we love our Ohio State football, but it's there was a topic a few weeks ago. Barstool Sports had put it out that it has to be boring being a Buckeye fan. And in typical Buckeye fan form, everyone got really defensive, but they're not wrong. When's the last game that you got super jacked up for? Even the Penn State game was a letdown, and I don't just mean the result of the game. I just mean the build-up to it because Penn State ended up being, they ended up being cheeks. They weren't very good. Texas, that was the game. I mean, if every week or at least every other week or every 3 weeks could feel like the build-up to Texas, how cool would that be? But I have not felt like we have geared up for a game that makes you feel all warm and fuzzy inside like we did for Texas, and that was all the way back in August. I haven't been excited for a game all of September, all of October. We're heading into what, mid-November now? I mean, I don't know about you, but the Bruins don't scare me. And Rutgers doesn't have me all warm and fuzzy inside either. And then you look at the fact that you got Michigan coming up. That's a different story. Of course, I'm going to be ready for that game. And then you at least get to the Big Ten championship. But, it's easy to be excited for the Michigan game. It's easy to be excited about a Big Ten championship game. Ohio State, Indiana, that's going to be a phenomenal matchup. I can't wait for that one. I can't wait for Ohio State to get that first round bye and kick whoever's ass in the Rose Bowl again. And then, you know what I mean? Then it's full, it's a full out sprint from that point. So at the end of the day, I sit back and I'm like, I don't know why Buckeye fans got so defensive when Barstool Sports, I can't even remember the host that came out and said that it has to be boring to be a Buckeye fan. It kind of is. We wait all season to get to we wait all year to get to Ohio State season just so we can maybe see them play one good team in the first month. Maybe Penn State will do their part. You know what I mean? Maybe Iowa sometimes will make things interesting. I mean, we thought Washington was good. I went to bat for Washington. Washington's not good. Washington's not good. I mean, I'm counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 teams in the Big Ten have 2 wins or less in Big Ten play. 6 teams in the Big Ten have 2 wins or less. In fact, 1, 2, there are 3 teams who have yet to win in the Big Ten, and that's Purdue, Penn State, and Michigan State. Maryland and Wisconsin each only have 1 win in the Big Ten. I mean, it's this conference is brutal. Absolutely brutal. Now, USC, overall, you look at them, they're 7-2 overall. They're ranked number 19th in the country. They're 5-1 in Big Ten play. Okay, that's great. Oregon's 5-1, but they don't. I was higher on Oregon at the beginning of the season than I am now. Even Indiana, who is the number 2 team in the country, wink, wink, as we sit here right now. I'm very curious to see where they get moved to when the rankings come out tomorrow, the playoff rankings. But and by moved, I mean like we're talking moved to 3. All right, like I could see them really moving Texas A&M up. Texas A&M gets a win against Missouri, a top 25 win. All right, I could really see Texas A&M being bumped up to the 2 spot. I could see Texas A&M. They have an argument to take over that 1 spot. They have 3 top 25 wins on the season, all of them on the road. I don't know why people get mad whenever I bring that up because it's a valid point. It's not SEC bias. It's the kind of bias that you would like to have for your team. If your team, all right, like imagine if the roles were reversed and Ohio State had 3 top 25 wins all on the road and Texas A&M had 1 good quality win all the way back in week 1, but hasn't done a damn thing since. It would be justifiable for us to be upset if the roles were reversed. But no, as far as being a fan of Ohio State, like I said, you wait all off season to get to the schedule, to get to the year, to get to the season. You get excited for Texas, and then it's just been absolute garbage since. Grambling, Ohio, Washington, Minnesota, Illinois, Wisconsin, Penn State, Purdue, UCLA, Rutgers, and then Michigan to close it out. I don't think it's a hot take to say that, yes, it's been a boring season. Now, again, nobody's going to feel bad for you. We're talking about, oh, man, my team, my undefeated team who's number 1 in the country. Oh, feel bad for me. It's boring to be a Buckeye fan. I'm not trying to be a victim in this situation. I'm not even really complaining, but it's facts. I mean, I'm not saying I would want it to be any other way than this, but you can't tell me that being a fan of the Bearcats or being a fan of fringe teams isn't a little bit more enjoyable at times for the majority of the season. Like we sacrificed 3 months of the season to really enjoy the January run. We sacrificed 3 months of college football so we could enjoy the month of January. Where other fans, they sacrifice the month of January just to enjoy September, October, and November. Where every Saturday you don't know, like, hey, we have a shot to win this game. We also could lose this game. Ohio State doesn't really have that. They get tested with that once, maybe twice a year. And it is what it is. But I would much rather be bored for 3 months of the year, 3 months of the season, to be thoroughly entertained by games that just feel larger than life once we get to January. But I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not going to try and tell you, man, Ohio State, UCLA, man, this is what this is what the expanded conference is. This has been awesome getting to see Ohio State and UCLA. Yeah, this would have been a solid non-con opponent from years ago, but not even solid. It was like when you put TCU on the schedule. You know what I mean? It's like when it's not an opponent that you circle and say, man, I got to get my tickets for that. So we'll see. We'll see what ultimately happens when it's all said and done. But let's stay on the college football discussion while we're at it. Gus Johnson, I don't know where you guys are at with. I think Gus Johnson's a heck of a broadcaster. I think he's phenomenal. I think he does a great job, but I also find his calls annoying. I don't know about you guys, but I found that call with the Mendoza throw and the catch in the back of the end zone for Indiana to go on to beat Penn State. I mean, my gosh, what a finish. What a throw, what a catch, what a storyline, everything. It had everything you need. It had all the drama, but I thought the call was obnoxious. I don't know how anyone out there, I love the passion and the excitement. Yeah, that's fine. But my gosh, I don't know. It's a childish like squeal that I just thought was a little over the top, and it's not professional, and we wouldn't call it professional if anybody else did it. So I'm not going to do it and say it here. I thought it was an obnoxious call, but considering the circumstances and the magnitude of the game and the precision pass and just the catch, and maybe precision passes being a little too friendly to Mendoza. But nonetheless, that's kind of where we're at. But it was an exciting finish, no doubt. Indiana beats Penn State 27-24. We know I had this take yesterday on the Sunday morning tailgate show when we were at Frickers. I said, this is a weird take, but sometimes I just think the Heisman should take a season off. I think this is one of those seasons. I don't think anyone really deserves the Heisman this year. I don't think anyone has been phenomenal to the point to where you could justify saying, hey, man, that's that. I'll never forget that Heisman season. I think whoever wins it this year, it's going to be a very forgettable Heisman season as far as I'm concerned. And that's me being a fan of a team that has two potential candidates on there. Jeremiah Smith technically wouldn't be a forgettable Heisman season because he's been phenomenal. I think we just know he doesn't have a shot at winning it because it's a quarterback award, whether we like it or not. But the Mendoza thing is getting on my nerves. I really like Fernando Mendoza. I'm a big Indiana fan. I'm not like a Hoosier fan, but I'm a fan of the storyline of Indiana. I was not a Kirk Cinetti guy. I thought he was arrogant. I thought he was cocky. I thought it was a very kind of I don't know what I'm allowed to say, kind of a deep. No, I don't know what I'm allowed to say. I just thought it was kind of toolish, if you will. I thought he was kind of toolish with the way he was acting. With the whole Google me routine, I'm like, dude, you're taking over Indiana. Why don't you just chill? But the guy backs it up. All he does is win. He's been the head coach for going on 2 seasons now, and he's only lost twice. And the 2 losses he's had are the 2 teams that met in the national championship game last year. But they've done everything that they're supposed to. They've beat every team that they're supposed to outside of those 2 games last year, but they won all the games that they should have to put them in position to make the playoff, and they're well on their way to making the playoff again. They never had a double-digit winning season until Kirk Cinetti got here a year ago, and now they've done it twice in back-to-back seasons. Indiana's a phenomenal story. But I have to say, okay, when it comes to Indiana and it comes to Fernando Mendoza, they squeaked by against a bad Penn State team. Penn State started the year 3-0. They are currently sitting at 3-6. And Penn State has lost 6 straight games. They have fired their head coach. They are losing players left and right. And they're losing games left and right. So I'm not going to sit here and talk about Indiana about, man, the number 2 team in the country showed you why they're the number 2 team in the country. I've heard analysts say that. That's a weird thing to say about it. This is how I know Indiana hasn't completely made it. This is how I know Indiana hasn't truly made it yet to the level of Ohio State or Alabama, Georgia, or others. Because here's the deal. If Ohio State would have narrowly escaped Penn State with a 27-24 win a week ago, we would not be saying, man, Julian Sayin and the Buckeyes, they used that championship moxie to escape Penn State with the victory. Now, I know it was at home, but it doesn't matter. Even if it was at Penn State and Ohio State only would have won by 3 and Julian Sayin would have only thrown for 218 yards with an interception and only threw 1 touchdown on the final drive, he would not have been given the benefit of the doubt that Fernando Mendoza in Indiana is getting. We are still, as football fans, we are still overly infatuated with the story of Indiana than we are with actual Indiana. Because if we truly viewed them as Ohio State, they would be getting shredded for only winning by 3 yesterday or Saturday against Penn State. If Indiana was being truly viewed at as an Ohio State or a Texas A&M or an Alabama, if they were truly being viewed that way, we would not be sitting here praising them for that victory over Penn State. We would be, we'd be slicing and dicing them for playing poorly against a team that has lost 5, now 6 straight games and has fired their coach, and they're not good. But that's how I know Indiana's not for real, is because of, as far as how people view them, is because of that. Just because of that detail right there, that's why I know we don't view them in true championship category. That's why I really don't give them a shot against Ohio State. I think that's who Indiana was. Yes, I think they're a very, very good team. I don't think they're on Ohio State's level. I don't think they should be the number 2 team in the country, but because they're 10-0 and they do have 2 top 10 wins on the season based on the opponents that they had at the time of which they played them, they beat them by a combined 60 points. It's kind of hard to argue them being in the spot that they're in, but they should be criticized for that victory on Saturday, not praised, because we're falling for the magnificent finish to the game instead of realizing that, oh man, that magnificent finish should not have happened because they should not have played poorly for 75 to 90% of that game to even put them in position to have that. So everyone said that is Fernando Mendoza's Heisman moment. I'm so sick of the Heisman moment campaign, because a lot of times if you have Heisman moments, it's because you're in close games. And it's one thing if you're in close games against good teams. Fernando Mendoza, he does that throw. Okay, if he makes that throw and he connects with Omar Cooper in the back of the end zone on the road at Oregon, that to me is your Heisman moment. Making that throw at on the road against a team that's lost 5 straight, now 6 straight, that's fired their head coach, that can't do anything right now, that to me is not a Heisman moment. Because that same defense a week ago, we just watched Julian Sayin, who's also in the Heisman race, absolutely shred that defense, throw for 4 touchdowns, throw for 316 yards. And because Julian Sayin was good from beginning to end, there was no situation for Julian Sayin to have a Heisman moment because Julian Sayin did his job for 4 full quarters. Mendoza took 3.5 quarters off, decided to flip that switch, and it was fun to watch, don't get me wrong, but I'm not going to give him credit for having a Heisman moment because you decided to only start playing at an elite level in the final drive of that football game. All right. For instance, I can't go home and light my house on fire, then call the fire department. And then when the fire department gets there, me say, hey, don't worry, guys, I got it under control. I put the fire out. All right. Where's my medal? Where's my, praise me, give me all the attention. Look at me. I put that fire out, baby. Well, no, you put out the fire that you started. Mendoza put out the fire that he started. He started the fire by playing poorly for 3.5 quarters, for throwing that interception. And then he goes on that magnificent drive, makes that unbelievable throw. Cooper, probably the catch of the year. And because it was an exciting finish, we're being fooled by that. I'm not going to praise Mendoza for putting out a fire that he started. And I'm not going to hold that against Julian Sayin, who did not light his house on fire because he did everything that he was supposed to. I'm Justin Kinner. It's the Justin Kinner Show presented by Frickers. Frickers, your home for fun food, sports, and spirits. 937-518-1410. Maybe I'm a Buckeye homer, and maybe that's why I'm getting defensive of Julian Sayin here. But everyone's saying that Julian Sayin, because he's a freshman, doesn't have a chance to win this. I think that because of what Julian Sayin is doing as a freshman makes it even more impressive than Mendoza, who's been around a minute. I think Julian Sayin should be right there at the top of that list, not Mendoza. I don't think that was a Heisman moment. Do you agree? 937-518-1410 was that unbelievable throw and that unbelievable catch by Cooper to give Indiana the win at Penn State yesterday, or Saturday, I should say. Was that enough for you to say that, hey, yes, that was his Heisman moment? It was not. I'm not going to punish Julian Sayin for playing 4 quarters of elite football and praise Mendoza for having 1 drive of elite football. The only reason you had a chance for that Heisman moment is because of how poorly you played leading into that Heisman moment. I don't know. We'll see what happens moving forward. At this point, do I want him to win the Heisman? Julian Sayin, yes. But Mendoza, you do that at Oregon, you do that at Ohio State, you do that against an Ohio State or whatever. Great, but that's not what happened. Let's not get that confused by any means. 937-518-1410. We'll be right back.
Hi, this is Kim Frisco, Executive Director of Montgomery County Veterans Service Commission. On Veterans Day,
vary.
Thank you for calling the Browns Emotional Support Line. Press 1 if you're blaming the refs. Press 2 if you're blaming the quarterback. Press 3 if you're blaming the head coach. Don't worry, we've got you.
1410 Wing AM, the only station where it's safe to scream into your radio.
The Justin Kinner Show, presented by Frickers. Frickers, your home for fun food, sports, and spirits. Well, the Bengals didn't play yesterday on a bye week. The Browns, unfortunately, did play. And, I was laughing because I'm like, in previous weeks when the Browns have lost, I've at least had a Bengals loss to at least slightly make me feel better about the Browns loss. But no Bengals game this week kind of made this one a little, it hurt a little more. 27-20, the final, the Jets over the Browns. And the Browns, of course, Week 10 matchup. Look, there's so much to dissect from that game, mainly because of the fact that you're coming out of a bye week. The Jets just shipped off two of their best players and basically waving the white flag, saying, hey, we're not very good to begin with, but now we know we're definitely not good when you move on from guys like Sauce Gardner and you move on from your, Williams, your pass rusher and everything else, and to go into Cleveland and, to have Justin Fields only throw for 50 yards, and I think he had like negative yards at halftime. I think it's the second time Justin Fields in the offense for the Jets has done that this year. But for them to, score two special teams touchdowns, 17 of the Jets' 27 points all came from special teams. Two kickoff returns, a kickoff return and a punt return, and then a field goal. 17 of the 27 points that the Jets put on the board yesterday, all special teams. The Browns just find ways to lose football games. Watching Dillon Gabriel play the quarterback position is painful. I'm very well aware that he does not have great pass catchers, that the offensive line is shakier than I anticipated coming into the season. And I love Quinshon Judkins, but he's not Nick Chubb, but fantastic running back, no doubt. But Dillon Gabriel not having weapons doesn't lead to him overthrowing receivers left and right. Whether they are good or bad wide receivers, you still got to get it to that good or bad wide receiver to put them in position to make or not make a play. He's not even putting a lot of his guys in position to make plays when he's constantly overthrowing guys or throwing behind them, throwing at their feet. It's painful, but here's why I'm okay with it. As dumb as this sounds, I said coming into the season, here's what the Browns needed. The worst thing that can happen is Dillon Gabriel is an average quarterback. That is the worst thing that could happen if you are a Cleveland Browns fan, is to watch Dillon Gabriel and to watch him and be like, yeah, there's something there. You know how excited I am every time he overthrows a wide receiver? You know how excited I am every time they go 3 and out? You know how excited I am every time he just can't seem to get it right? I'm very excited because the Browns can't afford to do this whole song and dance where we think there's something to work with. Oh, man, there's nothing to work with. Oh, man, there's something to work with. Dillon Gabriel has made it very clear 6 games in, and apparently he hasn't made it clear because Kevin Stefanski is sticking with him. But he's made it very clear that there's really not a whole lot to work with. And one of two things is possibly true here, or both. Dillon Gabriel's not good at all, and Kevin Stefanski knows he's not good, and Kevin Stefanski knows that Shedeur Sanders is as bad or worse. That could be the first problem. Or the second problem is Kevin Stefanski is just being absolutely stubborn, knows that Shedeur is better, and just is refusing to go to him. I've never been an NFL coach. Okay? I would love to know, and this is something I would love to ask buyers, like in players, like NFL guys just know this. The team knows who's better, right? Like if you are a Myles Garrett or a Ward and forget that, even if you're a Schlesinger or if you're a rookie player, it doesn't matter whether you're one of the worst players on the team or one of the best players on the team. You know who's better, right? Like they see it every day in practice. We see the mistakes he makes just on one day a week. They see the mistakes he makes every single day. And I have a hard time believing that this kid is just absolutely lights out Monday through Friday. And then Sunday gets around and he just doesn't know how to play football. I highly doubt that. I also highly doubt that anytime that Shedeur Sanders is out there taking his second team reps or whatever reps that he does get, I have a hard time believing that he is not making plays Monday through Friday during his time out there that Dylan Gabriel is not making and his teammates aren't seeing it and feeling it. There's just no way, right? So either everybody knows that Shedeur is worse than Dylan Gabriel and they support why they're not making a quarterback change, or they're all sitting there looking at Kevin Stefanski saying, what the hell is this? I said the best thing that can happen for Cleveland is that both quarterbacks are just absolutely atrocious, because if they're both atrocious, you know what direction to go in now. It doesn't mean you're going to make the right choice. It doesn't mean you're going in the right direction. But what I don't want this team to do is just stay and run in place. Oh, man, I like some things from Dylan Gabriel. There were some things about Shedeur I liked. I guess we're just going to roll with these two heading into next year. That is malpractice at that point. Drafting both of these guys was malpractice to begin with. If you just drafted, Dylan Gabriel and didn't draft Shedeur, this would actually be an awesome spot to be in. You have 2 draft picks for next year. You know you don't have your quarterback on this roster. Now you know what you need to do in the offseason. Cleveland doesn't know what to do. You have Deshaun Watson, who technically could be cleared and come back anytime now. Okay? You have Shedeur Sanders. You have Dylan Gabriel. You have Bailey Zappi, who's hanging around for this season. But, think about this. You have 2 first-round picks. You have the 2 rookies from this year on your roster next year, and you have Deshaun. So you can't use one of those 2 first-round picks on another quarterback, can you? Or can you? And if you don't take a quarterback with one of those 2 picks, you need to go get a veteran quarterback, but you can't go get a veteran quarterback, because what do you do with that veteran quarterback that you get? You make him the 3rd string. You put him on the practice squad. But you can't go into next season with these 2 and Deshaun Watson, right? What the heck is going on? This is just this is an absolute train wreck. And someone is to blame, and I don't know who it is yet. We don't know who it is yet. If Shedeur Sanders goes out there, you would think that Kevin Stefanski should be saying, you know what? Fine. You guys want Shedeur? Here's Shedeur. Oh, Shedeur's making the same mistakes? Shedeur's actually making even worse mistakes, because Shedeur is probably going to be a guy that turns it over more. And I say that because I think Shedeur is going to be a guy that's more of a gunslinger, that's going to take more chances. So he's going to turn it over more and maybe make the same mistakes that Dylan Gabriel makes, or struggle with the same types of throws. And then we're right back to where we started. But that's okay too. Let us see that Shedeur is as bad as Dylan Gabriel. But that's the other problem. That means you drafted not 1, but 2 horrifically bad rookie quarterbacks, and you want us to feel confident that you could draft a quarterback in next year's draft, in a draft where there is no clear-cut number 1. Talk about Mendoza a little bit ago. That seems to be the guy that everyone's positioning themselves to go get, and that's just the tallest short person at this point. That's not even saying, oh, man, you're tall. You're just the tallest of the shorter people that's out there. That's exactly what's happening. Is you're not getting a good quarterback. You're just getting the best of the bad. Because every quarterback that we thought this was going to be a quarterback-rich draft, every single one, Nick Saban said it on game day last week. He thinks that every single quarterback this year should go back to college next year. Cleveland, you better hope that Shedeur is the guy. You better hope that Deshaun Watson can come back and just look like something that he was in Houston. But now I'm done with the positivity with this team. I was trying to be positive. I thought with that defense, that offensive line, and the run game, I thought that, Cleveland just get an average rookie quarterback, get a Bo Nix level quarterback, because we saw with Denver. Denver's winning this year with average quarterback play. Bo Nix has not been great. He just hasn't been great. But that defense has been lights out. They could run the football. They're strong in the trenches, and they win football games. And that's what I thought Cleveland could do. I thought they were going to be strong in the trenches on both sides of the ball. I thought they could run the football like Denver, and that defense is lights out like Denver as well. You can get Bo Nix an average quarterback production. I thought Cleveland could win similar to Denver. They're nothing like Denver. They just played what we thought was the worst. Everyone's like, they just lost to the worst team in football. I said, we need to stop saying that. I think that they are the worst team in football. This is an absolute embarrassment, what's happening in Cleveland. And there's no defense of it. Kevin Stefanski, I was a Kevin Stefanski guy. I am not anymore. I think that how can anyone in that locker room trust any decisions that he makes moving forward? Like I said, the only way that Kevin Stefanski could get out of this is to play Shedeur, and he better hope that Shedeur is as bad as Dylan Gabriel so that he could say, see? Because we already know Kevin Stefanski let it be known that he was not a fan of the trade of Joe Flacco to the Bengals. In fact, he didn't even know what was happening. He gets a call from the front office to say, hey, by the way, here's what we're doing. And he was not a fan of it. He did not anticipate that they would move on from Joe Flacco. So technically, if both rookie quarterbacks are horrifically bad, equally bad, then that you can't put that on Kevin Stefanski, all of it. Now, he technically is a part of the draft process, so technically, yes. But man, oh man, I think Stefanski's scared. I think the reason he doesn't want to play Shedeur Sanders is because if Shedeur Sanders goes out there and looks the part, if him and Tillman and Judy and Harold Fandon Jr. and Njoku and obviously Quinshon Judkins in that run game, if all of a sudden they start putting up 23, 24 points a game and that defense, and then they start winning games late, and then they finish with 6 or 7 wins, and then the team that wins this damn division, like the Ravens, they're going to win this division probably at 9 wins. 9 wins for the Bengals last year. They missed the playoffs. In fact, the Bengals have won 9 games the last 2 years and missed the playoffs. Let's say Cleveland goes on a little winning streak down the stretch once they do switch to Shedeur. I think that is the nail in the coffin to get him out of there, Stefanski, because his stubbornness led to not going to him sooner. Because, hey, Dylan Gabriel's my guy. Even though this guy is better, Dylan Gabriel's my guy, and I'm going to play my guy before I play the guy that's better. And because of my pride and because of my boneheaded decisions, that cost our team a playoff and a division championship. That, to me, is all the reasons in the world to move on from Kevin Stefanski if that happens. Actually, I just don't see a situation how you justify bringing him back. I think this team just reeks. You have to bring in just a new, fresh vibe and feel and voice, because I think that all the fans have just lost faith in Kevin Stefanski. But when I'm watching that Jets game yesterday, everyone's upset. I wasn't even upset. I was happy. I was like, good. He's bad. That's what we needed to see. Because if he can't throw the football against that team, I can't wait for Baltimore. I'm really just tuning in on Sunday just for comedic relief. I need a good laugh. You know, the workload that I have this week, it's pretty stressful. You don't need to feel bad for me. I'm just saying, like, there's a lot on my plate this week. I'm like, I mean, my brain is scrambled eggs when I get to work every day because of everything I have going on. Now, everyone's busy. I'm not I'm not a victim here. I'm just saying, like, when I get to the end of this week, I am going to need a laugh. And I cannot wait to watch the Browns and Ravens, because watching Dylan Gabriel go up against the Ravens is going to be pretty dang funny. It's going to be hilarious. And then you want to know what's going to happen. Dylan Gabriel, all of a sudden it's going to click. He's going to throw for 240, 2 touchdowns, and the Browns will beat the Ravens, and then we'll be confused again. And I just hope that's not the case. I hope Dylan Gabriel is bad on Sunday. They have put me in a position where I'm rooting for his failure, because even if he has a good game, I don't believe that that's who he is. It is what it is. We'll see what happens. 937-518-1410. That's the number to call and jump in on the conversation. Theo, what up, Theo? Theo says, yeah, it's unbelievable what's happening right now. Ron Howard says another Browns quarterback set up to fail till further notice. I mean, I think this is a little bit of everything. I think it's a quarterback that wasn't set up to be in great position to succeed, but I also don't think the quarterback has done anything to bring something to the table either. Like Joe Flacco right now, just like Joe Burrow last year, no one is looking at Joe Flacco saying, man, Joe Flacco is failing in Cincinnati. Joe Flacco is the only reason the Bengals have a shot to win football games in Cincinnati. Dylan Gabriel is the reason the Browns are losing football games. Simple as that. Simple as that. Theo says, I'm glad you finally got on board. Stefanski should have been gone 1 or 2 years ago. Theo, I disagree, man. Like, I disagree. I mean, you're saying you're glad that I'm on board. Stefanski has always, that locker room has always rallied around Stefanski. He had a winning record with Jacoby Brissett. All right. You know what I mean? Like he had a winning record with those bad quarterbacks. I mean, I can go down the list of the QBs that they've had even throughout the Deshaun Watson stretch. Like he won games with Jameis Winston. He won games with Jacoby Brissett. You know, he won games with these guys. Like, you know, it's just the reality of it is when you don't have an elite level quarterback, you're not going to win consistently in the National Football League. But that defense rallied around him. That offense rallied around him, even with the limitations that they've had. But this is a different story. That you have guys quitting on offense. This team is just not good. You lose because of a penalty down the stretch. Now I'm always mixed on that. People say that's coaching. Is that I am kind of curious on that. Is that penalty late? I mean, that's, by the way, their third string defensive tackle. It wasn't even like one of their main guys. That's the other frustrating part about that. Why was that guy in at that time? But is that on coaching? A penalty late in a game like that, is that on coaching? I am kind of curious what your guys' thoughts are on that. I don't know. I'm not saying if you believe it is, I'm not even saying you're wrong. I don't know. I'm in between on that either way. It's 4:43 here in the Miami Valley. 937-518-1410. College basketball, we'll get to that coming up. Wright State will be in action tomorrow against Toledo. The Dayton Flyers missed out on a big-time prospect, a big-time recruit that had the Dayton Flyers in his final three. What happened there? Dayton got a win over the weekend, but, man, the more things change, the more they stayed the same. Dayton looks the same no matter what. But we'll get to all of that and more when we come back. The Justin Kinner Show, presented by Frickers.
This segment of Flyers Talk is presented by Crosstown Avoidance Insurance. Protects against the risk of Wright State looking like a rival you actually play.
Need an online notary? We can help. Hi, this is Mike Foley, your Montgomery County Clerk of Courts. We can notarize your documents remotely.
spirits. Submarine House. Justin Kinner back with you here on Dayton's ESPN Radio 1410 Wing AM. We only have a couple minutes remaining here on the show. College basketball is officially off and rolling. UD's a few games into their season. They're 2-0. Wright State's 1-1 to start the season, coming off their first loss at Cal out of the ACC this past Thursday. They have Toledo at the Nutter Center tomorrow night. Dayton will also be in action tomorrow night as they take on Cincinnati on the road. And I think this is Dayton won over the weekend against UMBC, 77-71 the final. They had a 41-37 lead at halftime. They only outscored UMBC by, I think, the Retrievers is what they are, the Retrievers, but they outscored them by 2 in the second half, and it was a lot closer than that game needed to be. And that's been the biggest frustration for Dayton basketball in recent years, is that they just constantly have a habit of playing down to the level of their opponent. They can get up, they can rise to the occasion to play against a Michigan State or a Kansas, right? Like we've seen them do it. They do it. We see them rise to the occasion to play a Marquette or a UC. I expect them to play at a high level tomorrow because it's UC. But I've always said my complaint about Anthony Grant teams is that they always play down to the level of their opponent. I don't think that they are a mentally tough team due to coaching. I think that Anthony Grant knows basketball. There's no doubt about it. That would be the dumbest thing I would ever say. And I've said a lot of dumb things. I would never say that he doesn't know basketball. But it is frustrating watching how often this team plays down to the level of their opponent. And then rather than take accountability as a coach, excuses are made. I don't know if you guys caught this. On social media, Dayton put out a little hype sizzle reel, if you will, coming off that game, coming off that win against UMBC over the weekend. And I thought it was interesting, the soundbite that's at the very beginning of this clip from from Dayton Flyers basketball social media account. Listen to what Anthony Grant says at the beginning.
I've been doing this for a long time, okay? And trust me when I tell you, guys get excited to play Dayton. It's telling you, okay? So guys do stuff that they don't normally do.
That sounds like a you problem. Guys do stuff that they normally don't do. That means you allow guys that normally aren't as good as they are to be better than they are against you, and on your home floor on top of it. Now, again, you come away with the win. And by the way, this is why they play these games at home, because I don't think they win a lot of these games on the road. Now, it's not just a UD thing. I mean, a lot of these schools are not going on the road to play these, smaller mid-major schools, but Dayton's pretty mid-major themselves. They have a high major budget. They have a high major NIL, and they have all this other stuff. But I mean, they still play like a mid-major at times. I mean, they play these UMBC schools competitive, and they shouldn't. These are the primer games. You should have blown UMBC off the floor as a preparation game for UC. Now, they're going to go to UC tomorrow. They're going to play great. They're going to make you feel all warm and fuzzy inside. And then the next time that they have to play a nobody, Anthony Grant's going to get a pass by talking out of it, by saying, hey, it's not that I don't have my team prepared to play. It's, hey, not that we didn't play well against a team we should have blown off the floor. It's, hey, everybody gives Dayton their best shot. Oh, man, everybody. I mean, guys do things they normally don't do against us. Give me a break. Give me a break. Imagine if Zach Taylor just said, because we have Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins, a lot of teams, they do things, they love to play us, they love to play us Cincinnati Bengals because we have Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins. And a lot of times you have guys that do things they normally don't do because they're just so inspired to play us. That's the biggest crock of crap I've ever heard. I'm sorry, but it's the same thing every year, whether you have NBA guys on your roster or you have a well-balanced roster, like I believe this one is. I actually like this roster that the Flyers have. I don't think it's one. I don't think there's one player. I think there's not that Obi Toppin or that Deron Holmes, or you know what I mean? There's not that one player that you have to truly depend on to get you over that hump. I think that this is a well-balanced roster. But it's funny, no matter the type of roster Anthony Grant has, they always lose the same and they win the same. They win ugly against teams they should blow out. And then, of course, when you play good teams, you look the part against them. To me, that's bad coaching. That's bad coaching when your team is constantly playing down to the level of their opponent. So I'm not going to sit here. I mean, when I hear that, I think this this is weak messaging from, in my opinion. I don't want my coach to say this, and I saw a lot of Flyer fans weren't happy with this comment from Anthony Grant to begin with.
I've been doing this for a long time, okay? And trust me when I tell you, guys get excited to play Dayton. I'm just telling you, okay? So guys do stuff that they don't normally do.
Imagine. I mean, and by the way, it's the PR job that the program has performed very well. Everyone falls for it. Everyone falls for it. Well, you know, yeah, they didn't play well, but I mean, everyone's going to give Dayton their best shot. That is such an arrogant and narcissistic way to view not playing the way that you should. That is absolutely insane that that's the mindset of the Dayton Flyers program. I know we didn't play the way we're supposed to against the Retrievers, the mighty Retrievers. We brought in the mighty Retrievers to give us a test. No, you spent money on the Retrievers to come in to get their ass whooped so that you could have a primer game before you go to UC tomorrow. But, oh, man, no, you know, you can't just sit there and say, yeah, we got to be better. We got to do this. We got to do that. Instead, it was, well, you know, we're Dayton. People love to play us. Guys do things they normally don't do because we're Dayton. Give me on that note, I'm just going to end the show. I'm going to end it today. You know, had a good show, had a good time with you guys. Oofa, college hoops. It always gets my blood boiling as far as that goes. Wright State welcomes in Toledo tomorrow. We'll have it for you right here on 1410 ESPN Radio. Chris Collins, Jim Brown will have the call. 6:45 coverage begins with tip-off at 7 o'clock. If you want tickets, I'll tell you how you can win tickets right away as we start the show tomorrow at 3 o'clock. Until tomorrow, this has been the Justin Kinner Show presented by Frickers. Frickers, your home for fun, food, sports, and spirits.